Okay. Welcome, everybody. I'll open us up for the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners formal session for November 9th, 2023. It is 10:06, not 11:06, 10:06. And Commissioner Starrett, would you please lead us in the flag salute?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. It's going forward.
You can switch. Do you want this chair?
No.
Okay, so just a reminder that our formal session schedule has been changed for the month of November. We will have no session next week on the 16th because we will be in Association of Oregon Counties annual conference in Eugene. And then the next Thursday is Thanksgiving. So no formal sessions for 2 weeks. And let's see, calendar session. I did add the Willamette Workforce Partnership meeting on the 16th, next Thursday at 8 a.m. I'm not sure how that conflicts with our schedule at AOC, but that is a hybrid meeting in case we want to attend that as well in the morning. Was there anything else to add that we missed on the calendar?
No.
No.
I don't think so.
Okay.
No.
Item D is public comment. This time period is reserved for public comment on any topic other than an agenda item, a quasi judicial land use matter, or a topic scheduled for a public hearing. And we did receive a couple of written comments, so I want to acknowledge those. And we also have a public comment, excuse me, from Kate Stokes and Elise Yarnell. Please come on up. Excuse me. Welcome. Great to see you both.
Hi.
Good morning.
Morning.
Okay, so this is on, right? Okay.
Yes.
Well, my name is Elise Yarnell and this is
Kate Stokes.
And for today, we're representing Community Wellness Collective. We're a 501c3 in Newburgh that has been around since 2018. And we started the organization to decrease the stigma around accessing mental health resources. And from there, we have had the opportunity to step in during the pandemic and support the Newburgh Emergency Shelter with them coming in under our 501c3 as a committee. And so we've had the honor and privilege to do that. Kate joined our team earlier this year and has been the addition that we really have needed within our leadership team. And we're here today to say thank you. So often I think that you don't get the thanks that you need for the work that is happening to support community-based organizations like ourselves. My experience in this world is oftentimes we talk a lot or we hear from the state legislature the importance of supporting small community-based organizations and those with lived experience to do the work from a grassroots perspective. But my experience has been that it's pretty rare that large entities like HHS in this instance would take the chance on a small organization like ourselves to steward such a large amount of money that was passed through. And so I really think it's important for the public to know our gratitude to the commissioners and Director Lindsay Manfrin for taking this chance on us to steward this money and serve our community through this shelter. So the grant that you awarded to us will help us continue sheltering in Newburgh at Northside Community Church. They're an incredible partner and have allowed us to stay there until YCAP opens Any Door Place. And so we will continue to do the work we're doing to provide sheltering services as well as job placement services, long-term recovery supports, and mental health and physical health on site until YCAP opens at Any Door Place. And then there will be a transitionary period and hopefully we will step in to serve in other ways in the community. And so we're really just here to say thank you. And we hope that we are good stewards and that you can hold us accountable and ask any questions that you have of the work that we're doing and how we can continue to serve the county in the way that is supportive to all. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
I guess I would just add a quick comment. I support everything Elise said, but most of you know I've worked in social work for 30 years and particularly with homeless people. And one of the beauties of the program you chose to support is it's a low barrier shelter. And a lot of people don't like low barrier shelters and they're afraid of it and they don't understand it. But a low barrier shelter is actually the first line of survival for people who will not access shelters in other ways. And so I want to say thank you. And I think it's a big deal that you trusted us with this money. And I pledge my years of experience and the things that I've learned over the years that we will be good stewards. And you will see that we've done some amazing things with the money you've given us and entrusted us with. We want you to know that we have personal relationships with every person that comes in that night. And for that one night, we're providing survival aid. And that's because you've given us that money. So I just want to say thank you and invite you to come and see where we are and invite you to come and serve up some food at the shelter. I will be there with you. Elise could be there too. We would love to have you. You're invited. And again, we want to say thank you.
Thank
We
you. Kate.
appreciate it.
Thank you for coming. And I want to take this opportunity to thank you. I know, Elise, you have stepped in to help an individual in our community who had nowhere else to go. And you made some, you used your connections to help somebody who was in a very difficult situation. So thank you for being available. Thank you for actually boots on the ground and being there serving these folks in our community.
Thanks, Commissioner Stewart.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any other public comment? And if you are online, please raise your virtual hand so we can bring you on. Okay, hearing and seeing none, we will move on to department updates. There's nothing today for item E, nothing on our work session. Item G is our consent agenda. We have one amendment agreement. Any questions on the consent agenda?
No, I just want to say that I will be making reference to some of these Oregon, the OHP and OHA contracts in terms of what the local public health authority is. So I just want to say that we look at them, we read them all, and there are some that we might not have agreement with, but our hands are tied based on what what OHA prescribes for local public health authority. So I would move approval of the consent agenda.
Okay. This one specifically is communicable disease work that we do.
Correct, but there are some elements in the original contract that we've already had these discussions over
Okay.
the last couple of years, but this is not specific to any particular disease.
Any further questions, comments?
None.
All those in favor of approving the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Great, thank you. Motion passes. Item H is old business. There's nothing today. Item I. Make sure I'm on the right thing here. Item I1, other business, is consideration of approval of the quote and purchase of a 2023 Vermeer.
Vermeer.
I'm looking at you.
Good job.
VX 50-500 vacuum excavator from RDO Equipment Company for $126,608.78.
I would move approval.
Commissioner Johnson has a big smile on his face.
Yeah.
It must be a piece of
I
heavy
wanna-
It's a
equipment.
large
I'm
piece
gonna
of
be like the
equipment.
first one to go vacuum
bulldozer.
a hole out. It's gonna be fun. So
Okay,
a little bit
so-
of background on besides what's in the letter. So when we hire this out, if it's like an emergency and there's not a locate there and we have to go repair a culvert or something and there's utilities, we can use this vacuum to vacuum around the utilities. It's a safe way to basically locate them ourselves, and not dig into a gas line or telephone line or whatever. So the last occasion that we did this was fairly recently, that we had to have somebody else come out with their back truck, and it cost about $1,100. So this is going to be good for emergencies. There's also going to be some in-house stuff that we can now do instead of hiring out, whether it's putting in signposts, and then basically what the letter states that Mark wrote for the other uses. So I'm excited for this.
When I read this on the agenda, I laughed and I thought, this kid is never going to want to give up Public Works.
No,
It's big
no.
toys.
It'll be knock down, drag out. And I called, and Mark was very thorough, but I called other companies, and I found a used one actually that had 100 hours on it, but it didn't have the same options on it. And I also called Ditch Witch. They have the same style of equipment, but they're a year out to get this same piece. And we actually are demoing this piece now, so we know we can have this within weeks. So it'll be good.
So $126,000 doesn't scare you?
No,
I mean, I know how much a tractor costs, but
no.
this is very expensive.
Yep.
So the trade-off is less hiring
Efficiencies,
out
less
of
hiring out.
labor.
Yep.
If we do damage utilities, that's a big deal.
Yes.
Very expensive.
Well,
mistake.
actually, it would be, you wouldn't even damage utility. You'd have to wait for a locate, which they're allowed 48 hours to locate. The locate companies are allowed 48 hours, but if an emergency, you're sitting there for 48 hours waiting to go do the work, whether it's a culvert that washes
Washed
out.
out.
And speaking of culverts, we do have a lot more culverts now that we have to do work with, which Mark addressed in his letter for this piece of equipment. So bridge work, there's going to be a lot of uses that now that we have one, it will make us more efficient.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay. And it's coming out of the motor pool fund, is that right?
It's coming out of the capital fund that
Capital.
we have for Public Works, correct?
Which is going to get renamed as cool equipment.
Oh my gosh. You have somewhere to put this thing
In his driveway.
in his driveway?
But no,
Yes, we have plenty of parking at
Yes.
Public Works to store this equipment.
we'll move one of the wrecked sheriff's rigs. Move it over and we'll park the trailer right there.
Okay. Did you already move approval?
Yes.
Okay.
Before you could finish, I moved approval.
All right. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay, motion passes. Congratulations, Kit. Item I2, consideration of a letter of support and authorization to submit an application for the Oregon Department of Emergency Management's Hazard Mitigation Building Resilient Infrastructure Communities and Flood Mitigation Assistance Grant. Woo. With a 25% matching fund not to exceed $17,000 to support the Yamhill County Emergency Management Program. We have Sergeant Young here today. Welcome.
Morning.
And who knew that, without even knowing it, culvert clearing is part of a hazard mitigation strategy.
There
So
you go.
nice work.
Way to team up.
It's listed in the current plan. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You want me to just go ahead and
Just
start?
dive right in.
All right,
Dive right
very,
in.
very good, very good. Okay, I was looking at plans, part of what we do in emergency management is we look at plans that the county has to address various topics. In this case, it's the hazard mitigation plan, which is required for the county to have if the county would like to participate in any pre or post disaster mitigation projects, grant projects, I should say, for grant funding from FEMA. And as part of that, they'd like to have the multi-jurisdictional aspect of that, have the cities, special districts, and so on as part of this overall comprehensive plan at the county level. This the hazard mitigation plan is on a 5-year cycle. It needs to be updated, and it is the only plan that is required to be approved by FEMA once it's drafted. And once FEMA approves it, it gets codified and the clock starts ticking to the 5-year. The current plan is set to expire in January of 26. In looking at those plans, I was trying to forecast out and get it in early for budget consideration for the 24-25 budget year, because there is going to be a 25% cost match with any plan grant plan update with grant funds. That's probably a better way to say it. So in the conversations that I've had with the vendor that updated our last plan, which was the University of Oregon, the conversation also turned to the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. The Community Wildfire Protection Plan, while it isn't an emergency management plan, also it's a county plan. It was enacted in 2009 by the Board of Commissioners, and it really hasn't undergone a comprehensive update since. It has gone through some updates, some minor updates through the years, but it would be nice to get that update cycle really to work in concert with the update cycle of the hazard mitigation plan. They're both mitigation plans addressing, I think the Community Wildfire Protection Plan goes a little bit deeper into the wildland fire side of things with fuel loads, and it does present opportunities for some property owners in the county to participate in Oregon Department of Forestry grants that they come out and assist in clearing property and reducing fuel loads. I don't know all of the details on the qualifications, but I do know that there are projects that go around throughout the state based on the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. Again, while neither of these plans are specific to emergency management, we do pay attention to these plans. The big users of these plans are planning, public works, public health, emergency management on the preparedness or the education side of things, getting the word out on the preparedness, how to be prepared, how to mitigate hazards locally to the property owners and the general public in general. So my ask today is seeking permission to join in on this project, sign a letter of support to the University of Oregon, who is applying for the grant through the state, and allow them to come in and do that update beginning in late 2025, or the beginning of 26. I'm sorry, let me back up, late 2024 or early 2025, so we can get ahead of the expiration date in January of 26. I think that will allow us a good footing to be able to take advantage of those mitigation dollars, which, you know, quite honestly, this grant here that the University of Oregon is putting in for is a mitigation grant. And if we did not have the existing plan in place, we wouldn't be able to take advantage of this grant opportunity.
I have a couple of questions, Chair. I know we had a conversation, Sergeant. I have a couple of questions about the match. The 25% match, it used to be in kind, but this time it has to be cash. Are we asking the other jurisdictions, cities in the county to chip in?
Yes, I've made the informal request at this point, at this time to gauge interest in that, and I've gotten a handful of responses from the cities that they are more than willing to participate in that and contribute a cost share, if you will, for that project.
So if they're not in terms of a financial contribution, does that still give them the ability to take advantage of the being under the umbrella of the mitigation plan?
Yes, in that they would still have to participate in the plan, but there's no authority behind us asking them or requiring them, I should say, to contribute dollars to participate in this. And I think it's probably the right thing to do if they can't or don't have the ability to let's pick an arbitrary number, $1,000. to contribute to offset maybe some of the county's cost on the cost match. If they couldn't afford to do that, then it doesn't exclude them from this process.
And there was, in the letter to the Oregon Partnership for Disaster Resilience, it talked about the county extending an invitation to the city of Willamina and special districts. Is that because they were not part of, in other words, they were not part of the original hazard mitigation plan with Amity, Carlton, Dayton, Dundee, Lafayette, McMinnville, Newburgh, Sheridan, and Yamhill?
Yes, the last update, Willamina, I don't know the details behind it. They work directly with the vendor, but I do know that they weren't able to participate in that process. So since they weren't, then they were excluded from the plan, or not included in the plan, not excluded.
And the $17,000, if we don't get the full contributions to bring us up to that, what even our part of it, where is that? That's not your budget, is it?
No.
And that would come from, looking at Ken, that would come from, where would that come from? Landfill license, or talking about we have to give a $17,000 match. I'm wondering what our options are, where we would take that from. Let's say we get half of that from the cities. In order to come up with the cost, the cash match, 25% match. We do have options. We have places to pull that money
Okay,
from.
sorry, I was on something else, so I
No, that's
wasn't
okay.
sure exactly what so we're needing to come up with the 25% match, or
It has to be
there's a
cash.
Has to
request?
be cash. If we don't, let's say we get some of it from the cities.
Yeah.
We'd need a portion from another bucket of money, and it's not going to come from your bucket.
Yes.
So that would be completely up to the board. It depends on the amount. You have landfill license reserve, or O&C. Those are both discretionary accounts that have some funding available for one-time expenditures such as this.
Okay.
And I'm sorry if I'm interrupted.
Mm-mm.
Thank you.
I think it's important to point out that I think we've talked about it in the past, but understanding that these plans, this type of plan, the hazard mitigation plan, the community wildfire protection plan, the debris management plan, all these plans, they have a lifespan before they need updates. And I think finding a place in the budget along those, when you start coming up against those expiration dates, finding a place in the budget to place those funds. It's my understanding that those funds need to be in place somewhere in a line item.
Mhm.
So you have the spending authority to be able to do those cost matches or spend that money. So I think it's probably part of a greater conversation for future strategic planning on plan updates. I do pay attention to dates. Even though they're not necessarily my plan, I have the emergency operations plan, which we're currently in the process of updating. But really that emergency operations plan has a relation in some ways to the other plans. They should all complement each other. And that's the goal in this, is to try and get some sort of set schedule to be able to continue these updates and not have to have the cumbersome conversations about where do we come up with the funds and how do we pay for these things.
So maybe before budget time, we can sit down and talk about what's on the radar, what might be upcoming, and then find a place in your budget.
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to have that conversation. I have a list on my wall at work that I look at periodically, and it's really, I think, just a informal strategic planning or forecasting that goes out to 2030 on the plans by year that we should look at on a yearly basis to look at updating.
Okay, thank you.
So our cities already have a hazard mitigation plan that they sort of go off of,
Yes.
because it affects building codes and different things, right?
Yeah, when I mentioned planning, it really, when you look at hazard mitigation stuff, you talk about floodplain management and building codes for, seismic, I don't want to say retrofitting. I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for, but the seismic viability of what those codes offer. So I won't pretend to know. I don't pretend to know what exactly all those codes are. That's not in my wheelhouse or my expertise. I'll defer that to those subject matter experts.
Thank you.
Okay. I think we're kind of gun shy to these types of things based on what happened with the wildfire mapping. So is this in your perception, is this a total overhaul of what we have now or just an update? And it's not going to be all of a sudden property owners are getting notices saying you can't build a shed in your backyard or whatever.
No, it's nothing like that. It's an update to our current plan. We've got a good base in place. It's FEMA approved, and we see zero impact like the fire mapping based on this plan. It's really part of that strategic vision on how the county will and the cities will look into the future to try and mitigate the cost of the impacts of disaster. We can go back to the culverts, right? The culverts is a specific line item for Public Works as the primary department responsible for that because they do the work. So with that mitigation activity, they're lessening the chance of a road washout, which is a heck of a lot more money than even that vacuum trailer would cost to repair a complete road. So if we can mitigate the impacts of that potential disaster, I think we're money ahead. And I think it's just good practice to make sure that we're keeping up on the infrastructure in the county.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to add, because I did not mention it, I apologize. The grant that they went out for, that the University of Oregon applied for, is for $200,000. It's important to note that includes the hazard mitigation plan and community wildfire protection plan updates for 3 counties. Baker and Clatsop are also along with Yamhill County are in that ask. It does not make it where our hazard mitigation plan is tied to those counties. And it's completely separate. It's just one bucket of money to update 3 individual counties' plans.
And we're guiding OSU for this plan. So we have a massive seat at the table. It's not like we're going to be handed something, be like, this is what you're going to do from OSU.
No, if history is any indicator on future involvement, they were very involved in coming to our location and sitting down with the people who need to be there. We do have a huge seat at the table. There's data sharing and all sorts of back and forth and requests on, hey, I need this. What does your code say on this? What's your plan for that? So yeah, we do have a voice and we steer that direction of that, especially when it comes to local culture on how we operate in our county and what our priorities are. We can't blanket it and say, well, Clatsop County and Baker County also need this plan. They're all going to be kind of the same thing, just a mirror of. No, it's tailored for us, really by us, because we do have the seat at the table.
See, and the reason I asked, I think the correlation to make sure that we do have a seat at the table would be during the wildfires, our evacuation site was our fairgrounds. And I think this could fit into whatever we upgrade our fairgrounds or end up moving or whatever. I think it might be nice to make sure that it's written into this plan for that. I've heard that there's possible FEMA funding out there for infrastructure for evacuation sites. So this might help with that towards our upgrading our fairgrounds or moving.
Yeah, very well good.
So I want to make sure that we have a seat at the table and make sure we have good verbiage in there to that aspect.
Is that a request to save you a seat?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Or at least a phone call or something.
Oh, absolutely.
Reserve.
So when will you know how much we're getting from the other jurisdictions and what it would ultimately, do you have to come back before the board, or is this pretty much, so we'll get 66,000 and change. And then based on whatever we can get the cities to agree to contribute, we would just have the balance of that to cover.
Yeah, right now, the way that we came up with the figure that is before you today is we took $200,000 divided by 3. Really, and that's all we can operate on right now. The state required a pre-application, and what you're looking at right now in front of you is a pre-application, basically let us know that you want to apply and we'll approve it. And if you're approved, then you can go through the process of formal application. That's all handled by the University of Oregon. The letter of support, if approved, and I've got that example letter in there. It's marked draft because it's not complete. But once that goes through, they'll apply with the formal request. And once that is approved, then we can jump on board. It would require, I think, me coming back in front of you when you talk about approving the contract. We'll have to do an intergovernment agreement with the University of Oregon that really describes the cost and the cost share, cost match, and scope of work.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions?
No.
Did you move approval?
No, but I will.
Okay.
I'd move approval of item I2, which is the letter of support to submit an application for the hazard mitigation, building resilient infrastructure, communities and flood mitigation assistance grant. Or BRIC.
That's a mouthful.
Oh, brick. There you go. Okay. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Great. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so item I3, consideration of approval of an intergovernmental agreement entered into by and between Yamhill County, the Yamhill County Extension Service District, the West Valley Fire District, and the Yamhill Soil and Water Conservation District, setting the distribution schedule for the annual community service fee, CSF fee, collected from Hampton Lumber Mills under its strategic investment program pursuant to ORS 285C, 0.609. Okay. And we have our county assessor here, Derek Wharf, in case there's any questions. I assume that's why you've joined us. So just briefly as a recap, there's been a lot of misinformation floating around in the social media sphere about this, but when we agreed to do a SIP with Hampton Lumber over their $150 million investment into their Willamina Mill, the SIP agreement allows us to come to some type of structured contract about the community service fee. The community service fee is 25% of the abatement. And that fee can be used pretty much how we see fit. However, we have to have agreement with the majority, 75% of the taxing districts that are impacted directly by the SIP. And so when we were talking about how to structure this fee, we were looking at other counties who have done this before, Marion County, Washington County, learning some lessons there. Those particular agreements happen to be pretty complicated, but also Washington County decided to use those funds. This is my opinion, but decided to use those funds in irresponsible ways, knowing that there's an end date to the contract. 15 years is the end date, and you probably don't want to grow the size of government on something that ends in 15 years. So we talked about making sure that not only is the county made whole on any type of abatement, but also the impacted taxing districts. And so that's how we've structured this agreement. So these 4 entities, Extension Service, Soil and Water, West Valley, and the county, because of the way that we set up these percentages, will actually receive more money than they would have if we didn't have a SIP at all. And our county assessor, Derek Wharf, put together the numbers. These are estimates because we don't know the exact numbers, but pretty good estimates. And we're looking at the Extension Service receiving about 25% more revenue over 15 years. Soil and Water would be 56% more revenue. West Valley Fire District would be about 50% more revenue. And the county, I don't have a percentage, but the county should receive about 1.17 million more in revenue over the 15 years of the agreement. So I'm very proud of the work that we did on this. It really does negate a lot of the criticism that we have been basically just giving massive tax breaks to Hampton Lumber, and we're suffering for it. That's not the case. We've actually decided to make everyone whole and then some. The two districts or entities that are not included in this are the school district out there and the city of Willamina. And so that's something that we have talked about separately. It's a separate fee, I suppose you could call it fee, that Hampton will be paying every year into a fund that is meant to go towards the needs of the city of Willamina and or the school district. It's really up to the Board of Commissioners to decide what happens with that. It is not spelled out in this agreement. This is strictly the CSF agreement. But the intention behind that money is to also make them whole and to make sure that if they have projects, water, sewer infrastructure projects, or whatever it might be for the school district, that they have some options with some additional revenue. Did I cover it all?
Yes, you did.
Okay. So are there any questions on the impacts? I didn't realize that these didn't necessarily get shared. These charts didn't get shared far and wide. So if you'd like to have me send these, we can also place them in the packet. But it was very helpful to see the difference between, what happens if there's no SIP and what happens if there is a SIP. So I would move approval of item 3, I3. Again, if there's any questions or concerns.
Nope.
None.
Okay. All those in favor of item I3 signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Great, motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Derek, for all the work
Thank
put
you,
in.
Derek.
Thanks,
These are
Derek.
excellent.
Appreciate it.
And Christian for the
Yes.
many, many months we spent trying to get to this point.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Looks like item I4. Consideration of approval of a letter of support for the city of Lafayette to apply for Business Oregon Concept Stage Grant in the amount of $70,000. And I believe this was added by Commissioner Sterrett?
No.
No?
I believe our economic development manager
Correct.
added this.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions on the letter?
No.
Good. Okay. I will move approval of item I4. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Great, thank you. Looks like just the chair signs it. Okay. Item I5 is consideration of approval of a letter of support to extend DCI's zoning allowance in the city of Newburgh.
So Chair, I believe you will remember when we stood there at the site of the fire that DCI had that burnt their facility to the ground, displacing workers, and it was a tragedy, and they had nowhere to go. So the county and the city stood shoulder to shoulder to make sure that we found an opportunity for them and another option for them to continue business. The old Rite Aid building had to be rezoned in order for them to set up operations there. They want to extend the zoning for that particular place in the shopping mall so that they can continue that. And I don't think there's any question about the fact that the number of employees and the contribution that DCI makes to the community makes this worthwhile. So got a letter in the packet, and hopefully we can get that signed and they can send this into the city so that the city can extend that zoning.
I asked DCI how it's going being next to Safeway. And he says, great, our employees go over there for lunch and,
Right.
Win-win. They love it.
Right.
So. Okay.
I would move approval of item 6, I6.
Five.
Five.
Okay. Any further discussion?
None.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All opposed, same sign. Great, thank you. Motion passes. I6 is consideration of approval of a memorandum of understanding between Yamhill County and Yamhill County Sheriff's Office and Teamsters Local 223, continuing the currently expired CBA through June 30th of 2024. Christian, do you want to kind of give us a brief background on
I will
this very lengthy
try to be
contract?
as brief as I can be, but also making sure you have the information that you need. So this is the culmination of our bargaining process that started a year ago in January of 22. The current contract expired in July of 22. We continued to bargain. We were at the point of potentially going to binding arbitration. There was a filing made by the employees to change representation from one union to another. So that sort of paused the entire bargaining process. That is now completed. And rather than go forward with binding arbitration, the idea was floated that if we could simply extend the existing contract for 2 years through June 30th of 24, that would allow us to sort of get caught up. And then we will commence bargaining again in January, February of 24 on what would be the new 3-year contract. Presumably that's how we've been trying to structure contracts around 3-year cycles, but that we would start bargaining again with the union for the new 3-year contract in January, February of next year. So this does carry forward the COLAs that we had proposed in bargaining of 3.5% in the first year, July 1, 22 through June 30 of 23, and then 2.25% in July of 23 through June of 24. And make some other small changes to the cap on county contributions to health and welfare premiums, and then also incorporates a new drug and alcohol testing program that we had spent a great deal of time negotiating, and appreciate their willingness to go ahead and incorporate that into this agreement, because we did spend quite a bit of time on that. So that takes one issue off the table, hopefully for next time as well. So.
And speaking of misinformation, we are not agreeing to a 20% COLA over these past 2 years for the sheriff's department. It is actually 3.5% and 2.25%. That was also something that was swirling around.
Oh,
So
I
I want to make sure we're
agree.
clear on that.
Yeah.
They'd love 20%, but yeah.
Yeah, not sure where that came from, but
Yeah.
these numbers are the same numbers that were in our final offers that had been posted and made public as part of the bargaining process previously.
Great. Well, I'm happy to see that this is kind of the internal issues are settled. That's a healthy thing to see. And that we can wrap this up and kind of become current at least, even if we have to walk right back into bargaining pretty soon here. But
Yeah.
at least it settles some of these issues. So.
Oh, and also it does withdraw 2 other pending grievances, which is always good to get those.
That's a
off the table
positive.
too, get them resolved.
Okay, so I will move approval of item I6. Is there further discussion?
Done.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Great, thank you. Motion passes.
And before we go too far, because it's not on the agenda, there was something that was missed, but historically, we always have this discussion too with any ratification or approval, a new collective bargaining agreement is the discussion about extending provisions of what was agreed to non-bargaining staff. And typically it's around the economics and the leave and benefit packages is, it's not all the due process and some of the other things that are specific to union members, but that's not on the agenda, but that is something for discussion that I think the board should have before we get too far down the road.
Sheriff, is that why you're wanting to comment or just here for questions?
Just here for any questions.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay, so we're adding on item I7 then, technically. Okay.
And I can read some language around the agenda item if
Okay.
the board then wants to have a conversation. So it would be consideration of approval of extending the provisions of the MOU under agenda item I6 to the non-bargaining employees of the sheriff's office.
I6 or I7.
Sorry,
I said,
I6. This would be
I7.
I7.
7.
Did I get that wrong?
oh, yeah, it's six.
I6, right?
7.
We're on 6. Are we
They already
adding?
now we're
approved
on-
I6.
I know.
That's not on the agenda, so
Unless
we're
it's-
adding to I7.
But he was
But
referencing.
the MOU is I6.
Okay.
Sorry,
All right.
I may have started something there.
Yeah, well, so we would be saying the provisions of the MOU approved under I6.
Thank
Aye.
you.
Okay, I will move approval and open up discussion.
Nope, nothing.
Wow, that's easy. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Great, thank you. Motion passes. Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you, Captain.
Thanks, Sheriff. Thank you, Captain.
Yes,
Yeah.
see you tonight.
See you tonight.
Okay, does that conclude other business? Okay. All right, so item J is public hearings. There's nothing today. That brings us to announcements. I will give a sort of a brief update. Obviously, it's now known that we have come to a tentative signed agreement with
Tentative agreement. Yeah,
Tentative
I'll be
agreement.
Circulating it today for ask me to consider.
for ASME Local 1422. I
Mhm.
think that's right. So clearly, it's been kind of a wild ride since last Thursday, a lot of emotion, I think, on both sides. But I appreciate the work that's gone into trying to come to agreement, and we are hopeful that the union does ratify the contract and that we can move forward. I'll just go into my announcements. So Yamhill County Farm Bureau dinner was last Thursday night, and we were able to meet Canine Valkyrie, Valk for short. And she's a full purebred German Shepherd from the Czech Republic. She is beautiful.
So was he joking about having husky?
Yeah,
Okay.
because she
Very
talked the whole
loud.
time,
Yes.
the whole time.
Very loud.
I mean, just the whole time. It was so cute. And so very smart. She's apparently passed, excelled in her testing, her nose work, to the point where she's kind of passed with flying colors and not typical of the canines they've seen in the past. So that was really cool to hear. And she's already been out on several calls in the rural parts of our county. So she was super cute. And when he left, he picked her up and put her on his shoulder and walked out. Everybody was just like, oh, okay, now we can leave.
I thought the best part was because they have been out on calls already, and one guy was hiding in the berry bushes. He's like, I have a dog, I can let it go, or you can say that
Yeah.
you're here. And the guy jumped out of the berry bushes like, I'm here.
I'm here. Unfortunately, I know that all too well. Yep. We just mentioned Yamhill City County dinner is tonight at Grand Ronde, and looking forward to that. And then Veterans Day is Saturday. So we want to extend our thanks and gratitude to all of our veterans in the county. And that's all I had for announcements.
I just wanted to say that we've had our second AOC HHS summit, where we talk about some of the concerns that commissioners have statewide around dealing with the Oregon Health Authority. And it's pretty universal that a lot of us feel that we, as the governing body for the local public health authority, have some concerns about the contracts, since our names are on those contracts. But when these contracts come, there's no negotiation. There's no saying to OHA, hey, these are things that we're not comfortable with. We've tried that in the past. We haven't been successful. And Oregon Health Authority has said pretty much sign it. And when you're getting funding from a state agency, they pretty much call the shots. So there will be ongoing discussions about how we as a local public health authority can mitigate some of this, because the Oregon Health Authority has not been responsive to counties' concerns in the past. And it's pretty much the golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rules. And we don't have buy-in on an individual county level. Every county is different in terms of what their needs would be. My concerns in the past have been some of the heavy-handed COVID vaccine mandates that have come through on these contracts. I look at them all. They're still in there. Hopefully people are starting to see that the information they were given is incorrect and are starting to make their own decisions based on their own research. So that was just something that, what is our job as a local public health authority, the governing body? That's been something we've discussed along with Measure 110, behavioral health costs, and the OHA contracts. We had a follow-up meeting on the Yamhill County Child Care, that ARPA grant. We've got $2.3 million. And I want to thank our Economic Development Manager, Joya Goodrum, for putting this information together and getting us to the place where we have a pretty solid path forward on existing childcare operations in Newburgh through CPRD. They have a daycare center and a preschool. And also they have, CPRD has a house that could be, in essence, made ready for kids. So we're going to be meeting, next meeting will be on the 27th, and we're going to be putting together a plan. So hopefully we can get this to the commissioners in early December, present something that could be a contract. But yeah, it's moving forward, and I appreciate everybody showing up last week.
Wonderful. Thank you. Any announcements?
Nothing.
You got nothing.
Nothing.
Okay. Ken, Christian, any announcements? Nope. All right. Okay. If there's nothing else for the good of the order, I will adjourn the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners formal session for November 9th, 2023. It is 10:28.